Good morning. It is Thursday. It's November 29th, quickly approaching the end of this fantastic month. Good morning. This is WGTV Today. I'm Wayne Alley.
And I'm Kim Best. Good morning.
Wow, Kim, the weather has been phenomenal.
That's what I was going to
lately.
say. What a roller coaster ride.
I am telling you, it's freezing one minute and it's
heavy
hot.
coats and
and
gloves, and the next day it's in the 70s.
I know. What are you going to do? But wow, it's
Adjust and deal with it and enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's expected this time of year. The weather is going to do that. It's
Yeah.
going to be all over the place, but we have had some phenomenal weather. It's just been beautiful. Like the last few days, you know, we've had some, you remember last, what was it, Tuesday, I guess, this past Tuesday when we had that rain.
Oh, yeah.
The sunrise was out of this world.
I know. I saw those pictures you took. They were fabulous.
Yes, they were.
I mean, red and pinks. It was
Really?
a beautiful,
I mean,
beautiful sunrise that I didn't see.
Oh. and then we had a full moon, and in fact, it's still almost full out there this week. I think Tuesday night, Wednesday night, it was just last night. It was just absolutely beautiful, beautiful.
Well, that's the perks of living in this part of the country, is that we have beautiful weather, and it's always different and interesting. Well, Wayne, let's hear from Tim Harper.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed this. Tim's a great guy. I've known him for many years, so you're going to learn something about the Tuscarora Council particularly, and about scouting here. That's up next on WGTV Today. Our guest today is Tim Harper, Executive Scout with the Tuscarora Council of the Boy Scouts of America. Tim, thanks for being with us. How
Wayne,
you doing?
good to be here.
Be prepared.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Always be prepared. That is, of course, indeed the Scout motto.
It is.
The Scout motto, and something that you learn right from the very beginning. That and the handshake and the salute.
Absolutely. Yes, that's all part of the icons, if you will, of the scouting program.
That indeed it is. But we want to talk about the Tuscarora Council and how it pertains to the Wayne County area and the other counties. Tell me, what is the Tuscarora Council and how does it play into the Boy Scouts?
Tuscarora Council is made up of 4 counties, which includes Duplin, Johnston, Sampson, and Wayne. We are one of nearly 300 local councils across the country, and those councils are made up various sizes, and depending on years ago when councils were formed, the politics, if you will, and the demographics of a particular area.
Right.
So we cover 4 counties and traditionally serve about 6,500 young people.
Wow, 6,500 scouts are young people, and that's how many troops, scouts and Cub Scouts and all?
We have about 130 different scouting units within those 4 counties.
So it's a very large county, although there are other councils that are larger.
Absolutely. We are actually in North Carolina. We are the smallest council in North Carolina.
With the 4 counties.
Right.
The smallest.
Right.
But aren't there advantages to that?
There are. We're a down home council, if you will, and everyone knows everyone, and we get along as one big happy family, which is a good thing.
That is a good thing. This day and time, we live in troubling times. Well, these are very good times. It just depends on how you look at it, I suppose, but there are troubling times. And I personally see scouting as a way for a young man to find direction, to find character, to build character. Tell me about scouting in general. Why is it good for young boys?
We are a character development program. Obviously, when a young man joins the program, we don't tell him that he is going to develop his character. We talk to him about having fun, about being in the outdoors, about hiking, camping, fishing, learning how to shoot a rifle, learning how to shoot a bow and arrow. But all the while he's doing these fun activities, he is actually getting his character developed. It's all about self-realization and just being able to develop him as a full participating citizen. Because let's face it, we are going to turn this community, this county, over to these young men in the future, and we want to make sure they're prepared to be able to function.
You know, when I was just becoming scouting age, I could not wait to get into the Scouts, to be a part of the scouting program. Do you find young men nowadays to have that same drive? Do they want to become a scout, or are they told about scouting and then they think about it a while? What's the feeling now?
I think they're at the younger age. The younger we can get the kids into the program, the better it is. When we go into the schools and we have the opportunity, thank goodness for the school leadership here to be able to go into the schools and actually recruit the young men. We do that in the elementary schools. At that age, they are extremely excited about being able to come into the scouting program, to be able to learn different things. So we give them an opportunity, and then we hope through their experience in the Cub Scouting program, they'll go on to become a Boy Scout. And obviously we'll take the next step in doing higher adventure type activities, do a lot more camping, just a lot more different activities that they'll be able to participate.
I like the idea that you're taking young skulls of mush, as someone says, and developing those into thinking young men. You don't tell them how to think, you just get them to thinking, and thinking with good moral character.
Absolutely.
And there have been many leaders, national heroes who started in scouting.
Good percentage of the men that have gone through the NASA program were scouts. A good percentage of them being Eagle Scouts. President Ford is the only president that at this point that has been an Eagle Scout. A lot of the presidents participated in the scouting program as young men and as adult leaders, but he's the only one that's an Eagle Scout at this point.
Of course, there's a lot of people that don't know who Ozzie Nelson is, but he was one of my heroes, and he was one of the early. He was one. I think he was the youngest Eagle Scout at the time when he made Eagle.
Right.
But quite a role model.
Absolutely.
And very involved in community and in family. And that's what scouting is. It's getting involved with community, getting involved with family, getting involved.
Scouting is a family-oriented program, especially the Cub Scouting program.
Yeah.
And our youngest age level program is called Tiger Cubs, and that's a program that is a one-year program that's preparing them to become Cub Scouts. And in that program, one of their parents actually has to join with them. It's an exciting time for the child, for the scout and their parent to be able to spend quality time together, actually working on his advancements, going camping together. So it's scouting affords families opportunities to have quality time together.
Well, scouting is Boy Scouts of America, 103 years old next year in February, I believe.
Right, exactly.
And we're excited about it.
Well, we're excited about that, but we're also excited about the Tuscarora Council will actually celebrate its 90th anniversary.
Really? 90 years?
90 years, and we look pretty good to be 90 years old.
Tim, you look great for 90 years of age. That you do.
So we're excited about the opportunities that lay before us as far as celebrating 90 years together. Here as a council, we have a special kickoff that will happen on March the 4th, where our National Chief Scout Executive, Wayne Brock, will be here with us that evening. Okay. So we're excited about him coming into town, and hopefully folks will turn out to actually see him and be able to participate, in that activity.
That's great. Now, again, the focus of scouting is on young men. You tell them they're going to have fun, and they do.
Absolutely.
Camping. It's changed, however, over the years. I think it's changed. The core has not changed. The core values has not changed, but it seems to have changed. There's more emphasis placed on other areas. At one time, everybody thought, well, he's a Boy Scout. That means he helps little old ladies across the street. He ties knots, and he goes camping. But there's so much more involved with Boy Scouts and scouting today, with lifestyles, science. Scouts get involved with so many things.
Right. We're still all about, and our core values have not changed at all during that 103 years. We have changed our program to meet the needs of today's young man. And you're right. Back in the early days, where there were merit badges that were dealing with very basics as far as camping and cooking, and those, we still have those, but we also have space exploration. We have geocaching merit badge. It's a brand new one.
Geocaching.
Geocaching.
Wow.
And I haven't got into geocaching at this point, but there's a lot of young men out there that have. So we've opened up to the world of electronics, if you will.
Yeah.
Because that's what is of interest to today's young man. But today's young men are also still interested in camping and hiking and fishing.
Sure.
So we still have those core things that we feel like we're all about and we're experts at.
Yes, you are. And in fact, at the same time, somehow those character building traits actually enter into it without their even knowing it.
Absolutely.
You sneaky rascal. Now, that is
right.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Well, not many young men would join a program that says you're going to have your character development.
That's right.
But young men will join programs that say you're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to fish in the camp and
you
hike.
do.
Yes.
You really do. Now, I know that potential members of Scouts, new members, don't come to you to join, but they go to individual Scout troops. Now, if there's someone who is not aware of where the nearest Scout troop is, can they call you?
Absolutely. The easiest thing for folks to do, and I would somewhat guarantee that there is a Scout troop or a Cub Scout pack very close to your home. So all you really need to do to be able to identify where the local, the closest scouting program is to you is to call our office. Okay. And that is the absolute best thing to do. And then we will refer you to where the closest program is to your home.
And the number is? The
number is 919-734-1714. 734-1714.
All right, Tim, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I love scouting. It's great. It's a great program for young men, and I highly encourage parents or guardians, if you have a young boy who needs a little guidance, let him talk to someone about scouting. It may be exactly what he needs. Tim Harper, our guest today. He is the Scout Executive for the Tuscarora Council of the Boy Scouts of America. I'm Wayne Alley. WGTV Today, thank you for being with us, and we're back here, wherever here is.
Well, that was a great interview.
It was great. I really enjoyed that. Tim's a great guy.
Every time I hear him speak, I learn more and more about the Tuscarora Council.
I know. He's very knowledgeable. He's been there a long time, and he's just, I was a scout when I was a youngster.
Were you?
Oh, yeah. You know, Lord Baden-Powell brought the Scouts to America back in 1910.
Did you know him?
Very well. Yeah, he was a friend of mine. Yeah. Of course, he was just a kid at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the way it goes.
Bill Gates chose the name Microsoft for the company he and Paul Allen had formed to write basic computer language for the Altair, which is a microcomputer based on the Intel 8080A processor. But he did that in 1975, this very day, which I guess now, it didn't seem like it was that long ago, but I guess now it
seems like they've been around a while.
2012, yeah, it's been around a while. That was 37 years ago. Well, okay. All right.
Yeah, it's been a while. Longer than some people watching have been alive.
Do you ever open a greeting card and confetti blows out?
I can't say that I have. I've opened them and they sing to me.
They sing to you, yeah. But there was a 1988, a guy received a patent for creating or inventing a greeting card that when you open it up, confetti blows out all over you.
Oh.
It's cute. It's cute. 1988 it was.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
You'll notice our producer didn't flinch.
No, she didn't. Just did not even.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I am blessed. Good gracious.
Oh,
I need to
I
wash
know.
my hands. That's what you do when you sneeze. You need to wash your hands, and I can't do that. But you can at home, washing your hands.
How do you do that now?
Well, you put your hands under the water.
Under water?
You get a little soap.
Yeah.
So follow him. You put your hands under the faucet, right, and you sing a little song.
Oh,
that's how you do it.
What kind of song do you sing?
Any song you want to sing that lasts at least 20 seconds.
Oh.
Any song you'd like to sing for 20 seconds. That's right. And then you rinse your hands off, dry your hands completely, and you have washed away all the germs. That's right, Wayne. Wayne has lost it. He's in happy land right now. So we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to move on to our next interview, which is learning all about the Air Force Museum. Shh. Air Force Museum. Stay tuned. This is what's happening in your community. Good morning and welcome to What's Happening in Your City. I'm Kim Best, your host, and I'm joined this morning by the Air Force Museum group called Werner Johnson. They are the consultants and planners. They are here to share information and the process about the entire Air Force Museum. Thank you for joining us this morning. Tasha, will you give us a basic overview of what the project is and the direction that we've gone so far?
Exactly. The City Council purchased the former Arts Council building on the corner of Spence Avenue and Ash last year, and they purchased that with the idea of having a museum in that building. The idea of having an Air Force Museum in Goldsboro is not a new one, actually. It's one that we considered when we were talking about having a civic center. I don't know if we had shared that information with our consultants when they were coming on, but we actually had this idea when we talked about having something that would set our community apart when we were looking at a conference center. And that idea has been tossed around our community for several years. And when that building became available, our council thought it would be the perfect place for us to have a museum. So we purchased that building and began a process to explore and see if we could make it happen there.
Well, what kind of museum would this be? What are we showcasing in this museum?
Well, we want to showcase our military history here in Goldsboro. We wanted a place where we could share stories of our airmen, of our pilots, of people that have come through and made Goldsboro home. We wanted to share the Air Force history, our history of flight, our love of military history in Goldsboro, and really what that has meant to our community over the years.
And the bond that our community has with our Air Force,
exactly.
I'm sure.
Exactly.
They are so much a part of who we are and what we are.
You're right.
That I understand very much why we want to showcase what has happened through the years and the changes and the evolution of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base.
Exactly, and we wanted to make sure that the folks that we brought to the table really had a passion for this project. So I think that our council was very cautious and very conscientious of the individuals they selected from our community to help lead this effort. By no means did staff do this alone, but we had a dedicated group of citizens that worked with our consulting team, and they met over a period of months to get us to the point where we are today that we're going to share with the community.
Well, how were they selected? How did this happen where we now have this Air Force Citizen Committee that has worked so hard for so many months?
Good question. We had a number of individuals that came forward when they when the city purchased the building, and we had a lot of phone calls that came in. We had emails that came in. Individuals that called and said, we're interested in this project. We would like to to help. Either they had a connection to the military in some way, or they were really longtime community members that really felt this was a story that needed to be told. And they came forward and said that they were willing to volunteer. And council had to make some decisions. We had a brief application process that we went through, and council looked at the names that were on that list and selected that core group to work with us.
Well, they have worked long and hard.
They have, but they've had some good guidance here.
Yes, they have.
They've had some good guidance.
So will you introduce the group that is with us today?
Absolutely. I want to take the opportunity to introduce our team from Werner Johnson. There was actually, this was quite a unique project because we had a number of different consultants that were on board. Tricia Cook with Werner Johnson was kind of our glue that held us together, taking the lead for all of our consultants. Architect on board, Mr. Lou Seriani, is with us as well. We had Dan Murphy that talked about our interpretive plan, and really what are you going to do once you get to the museum is where Dan came into play there. And there are a couple other folks that aren't here with us today but really played an integral role, and that is Bob Brace. He looked at our operating plan and told us what it would take to financially operate this museum once it's constructed. Community input was key to the process as well, and we had Kathleen Tinworth with Exposure Museum. She was out in our community at the mall, at our parks, interviewing members of the community, and also we had an online survey component that I think Tricia will share some. And the final component included our fundraising council. He came on board to get some ideas about where are the places that we could go to look for some financial support to help with the initial capital for the building, and that ongoing support that we would need to sustain it. So we had a large group of experts that were helping us work through this process.
It sounds
exciting,
like it.
Very exciting.
You had specialists that could walk us through every single step,
Yes,
it sounds like.
we did, and I mean,
This has been going on for months, correct?
It has been, and you know, as we talk some today, we will have a final report that comes to the City of Goldsboro that will be given to City Council, and from there, they will decide how they want to move the project forward, and we hope to do that sometime during the first part of 2013.
Well, Tasha, I want to ask you a question that I myself wasn't as familiar with until I've watched this process. When a project is submitted or requested to be looked at, tell me about the process of why you hire a group to come in and research it and give you all the detailed information before it is proposed to the City Council.
Well, there are a number of things that we are responsible for in cities, and quite frankly, planning and designing museums is not one of my areas of expertise. We don't have a staff member on board that can do that. So that's where we bring in someone that does have that level of expertise. We went through an RFP process, and we selected the firm that was best suited to help us go through this exploratory process and to give us the information that we needed to be able to make a good decision on how to move forward. And Werner Johnson was heads and shoulders above the rest of the firms that we interviewed, so we were very pleased to work with them.
So once the proposal has been made and once they have submitted a written report, the budget and the various pieces to this puzzle that have been submitted to the council, that's what if you make the decision, if the council makes the decision to go forward with this project, then that's the information that they use.
They'll build upon this work. This is that
why
first
it's so
layer.
important.
Exactly. You
to
have to do the
concrete
planning up front.
information.
Exactly.
Okay. So that gives a better understanding of why you put so much time and effort into researching a project, because once it's been agreed to move forward with, you use the information that these people, these experts, have given you and submitted, correct?
They have laid the foundation for us to build upon.
Wonderful. This morning we are here to discuss the Air Force Museum, and I'm joined by the group Werner Johnson. They are the museum planners and consultants. Welcome.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Nice to be here.
Nice to have you here in Goldsboro, North Carolina. If you would tell us your roles on this particular project, and of course introduce yourself.
Oh, happy to. I'm Tricia Cook, a museum planner with Werner Johnson in Boston. And joining me, we have...
I'm Lou Sirianni. I'm the architect component of our group here, and focused on the building and the site and what we're going to do with that.
Perfect. And you are?
I'm Dan Murphy. I'm an exhibit designer, and my role has been to identify the kind of museum that would best capture the things that make this place and the story unique, and that best return value to the community in terms of exhibits that are fun and educational and that will attract tourists and strengthen the ties between the community and the base.
Well, talking about community, Tricia, you said that you all have very much gotten the input of the direction for this entire project from our community.
We have indeed.
Can you tell me about that process?
Happy to tell you about that. The city, from the very outset of this project, wanted very much for the community to have a strong voice in the development of the plan. So we proposed conducting wide-scale community surveys, talking to focus groups that included educators, veterans, going out to the base to meet with pilots. So we have really gathered a lot of ideas, opinions, concerns, hopes, and we take all of that into account in developing an exhibit plan, an architectural concept that we feel will work for the building.
Well, tell me about the overall mission of this entire project. Where do you see this going? What is the purpose in this?
Well, the mission is an outgrowth of what citizens have been thinking about for a long time here. Some people will tell us that it's been as long as 25 years that stakeholders in the community have wanted this museum. They want to be able to preserve and honor the men and women of Seymour Johnson. They also want to be able to give the public more access to what happens at Seymour Johnson, to inspire people, to make people feel appreciative and safe because of all the work that goes on out at the base. And they also look to this project to bring in tourist dollars to the area as a destination for people to come and learn more about Goldsboro.
So it sounds like this entire project will have many different areas. It'll have an education piece.
Yes, it will.
And of course, it'll have the heritage piece, and it'll have the tourism piece. Well, tell me more about going forward with this project. How did you all come up with this plan, and what procedures you had to go through?
The procedure started with our first meeting here about 6 months ago, and we came as guests to Goldsboro. We came to learn, and that process began with the Museum Citizens Committee. And we got a lot of insights, a lot of avenues of investigation. And from there, we started doing what we call our stakeholder interviews, meeting with key leaders in the community, both businessmen and educators, who gave us invaluable insights into the kind of place they'd like to see developed. Then we did a visiting workshop down here with everyone, a planning workshop. We were here quite frequently.
It sounds like it. You've learned a lot about our community and the people here.
And as I said, coming as guests, we now feel that we're leaving as friends, you know, because we've become quite enamored with the people here. Part of that process required our museum evaluator, Kathleen Tinworth from Denver, to come and spend a whole week here. She conducted in-person interviews out on the street. She went to...
With the general public.
General public. She went to parks, festivals, malls.
Wonderful.
And she had developed a standardized data collection instrument on her iPad. And she approached everyone she could, and she got very few refusals. So she talked to people from all walks of life.
What was her purpose? What was she trying to find out from us?
What she tried to find out is, first of all, she wanted to know how aware people were of this project. And she asked people, have you heard about the project? And over 80% of the people said they had heard about it.
Goodness.
Which we thought was quite remarkable, you know, through the media. And so in a way they were prepared to take the time to answer her questions. And she asked them for ideas about what they would like to see in the building, what experiences they would like to have. And all of those suggestions, you know, Dan was able to kind of roll into the whole visitor experience plan.
Well, let me add to something about it. We, I guess, call this whole part of the effort discovery, because we're coming to discover what's special here.
Right.
This museum wants to be rooted here, and so we need to not only understand the community, but we also need to understand the story and the history. So while Kathleen was out talking to people in the community, people in my group were researching with great guidance from the museum committee, the story of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, the story of the men and women who have called that home during their service to our country, and the connections between the community and the base. And when we do discovery, what we like to find is a great story. And this is an incredible bit of history that ties this community together. The premier fighter wing in the history of the world, the premier aircraft, and one of the things that's been very important is that it is a community that makes that possible.
Absolutely.
There are the people on the flight line, there are people in the communications and control center, and understanding how all that works together as a community. And it's also the people that coach the soccer teams and teach the kids of this community of servicemen and women, and finding that great story, which is hiding in plain sight, really, but realizing that it's not only regionally grounded, but it's a nationally significant story, and that's where the name proposal comes from. Is not this is a regional museum about this place, but the story here has national significance. The projecting of air power from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base is part of the strength of our nation. So finding that that is actually part of the way people feel about this community was very strong. And the other thing we found, because we want museums, we believe museums can play a very important role in a community. They're common ground, unlike anything else, and they can bring people together for various purposes, from entertainment to education to just sort of community activities.
Right.
And we found in Goldsboro so many different things that gave us a very strong feeling that a museum of this type could help what is already a growing and strong community. There's obviously lots of challenges here, like everywhere else, but with the growth of tourism, the investment that the city and the county and the people are making in the future of this area, we feel like this can really help to
Continue
have a place that will strengthen the sense of identity, shared heritage, and project a very, very positive message about the role this community plays in a much bigger story.
And I'm assuming you all met with representatives from both the 9/16th and the 4th Fighter Wing?
Well, we've had meetings with several people, and far beyond that, we've had people who came, who've returned to the community that were here during the atomic age.
Oh my goodness.
And their story is also very exciting. But yes, we met with representatives of the 9/16th. We had a great session with a couple of, a pilot and a Wizzo from the 4th.
Oh yes.
And what incredible people. And I'll just tell you what we've said amongst ourselves, and you can edit this out if you need to. we felt that we had just met with superheroes.
And they are, and that's how we feel.
Incredibly skilled, knowledgeable, compassionate, and passionate people. And their interest in having their story told is not one of, there's pride there, but it's not one of ego. They want to share this because they realize that there's so much involved, so many people who make this possible, and that's something I think they're more proud of than just the work they do individually.
Absolutely. Well, our community always has embraced the entire community of Seymour Johnson. It's become one big Goldsboro. And as I'm sure you found as you met with different citizens in our community, the sense of pride that we have because they're here. You know, it's not a them and us. It is a community, and they are a big part of our community.
Well,
and this would fit in nicely.
One of the purposes of this museum is to strengthen that. And there's many aspects of that. One is to help people know more about it.
Right.
When you know more, you can understand better. But also to bring people together from different parts of the community. One of the important areas of the museum is a classroom community room that people can come and hear someone who's a pilot in the 9/16th talk about what it's like to keep our air power in the air, or someone who works on the ground, someone who can explain communication technology, veterans, etc., to meet with community groups and to tell those great stories on a personal level, which is...
And how interesting that would be with all of this surrounding you within the museum.
Oh, I think that one thing that's important to say is that, and this came out of community as much as anything else, hearing people talk about it, they're talking about the people. We've got really cool aircraft, great technology.
Yes.
It's a tremendous facility, but it's the people that make all this work. So this museum, though we call it air power, it's the projection of air power by what these men and women do. And that personal connection is going to make this very strong. In the plan, we also have a lot of exhibits that are conceived to support educational initiatives here. You know that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is a very important component of education in this area. North Carolina has committed a lot of resources to developing this, Eastern North Carolina in particular. And so this museum can become an adjunct to the classroom. There's a kind of learning that people do in museums. It's more informal, it's more project-driven. And so some of the exhibits here are meant specifically to support the initiatives of the education, and that's at all levels, including adult education.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, our community obviously thinks that is an important piece. I mean, we have such a strong school. One of our newer schools is the Wayne School of Engineering. I mean, what a perfect tie-in with all of our schools, from elementary or preschool all the way up through the college level, adult level.
Well, we've talked to some of those folks and
I'm
see
sure.
some enthusiasm for the idea of having a partnership. And this is down the road, but once you have a facility like this, that's really the beginning, not the end of the process, because then the partnerships develop and the life of the museum begins to take its own shape as a destination, but also as a source the educational outreach into the community, the partnerships with other colleges. This is a place, a hub where that can begin to happen.
Goldsboro will be a destination with the museum.
Well, I think Goldsboro already is a destination, but certainly this is, again, that goes back to the name. It's not the Seymour Johnson Air Base Museum. It's the Air Power Museum at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. So it's a bigger idea, and we want that sign to get, that brown sign on I-70 to get people to turn off and say, I'm interested in that. I know about that. It's something I'm very aware of. Of course, we're all aware of it in the times we live.
Well, tell us more about what we'll see inside this museum.
Dan can talk a bit about that, but I'll start by talking first about the site and the location. And one way to think about it is that if the building weren't there and it was just a property available for a museum, a new museum, we would highly recommend that spot. It's a significant intersection in town. It's not far from the base. It's got ample parking. It has enough room for expansion. And the building itself has a prominence about it. You know, it could be a museum.
Right.
It could be a museum.
It has that look and vibe anyway,
it has that look about it. So all of those positive, the report will reinforce the positive aspects of that building on that site. Then we look at it, and we've established a new entry right off the parking. So the present building has kind of a canopy with a drive-up bank window. We change all that, add a vestibule, and make that the primary entrance. And the nice thing about that is that it's right on axis with the center of the building, and the building is rather symmetrical. It is symmetrical, and right in the middle is a high space. I don't know if you've been in it, Kim. Have you been in there? Okay. So that high space, again, lends itself to the museum function. If we were building it new, we'd have a double height space in the middle like that. We're also then projecting a small addition, very modest, we call it a glass pavilion, out on the Ash Street side, and it's directly opposite the entry. So you enter, there's a gift shop on the left, there's a small catering kitchen, and then you go into the center area, and then beyond that, out to the glass pavilion. And then two terraces on either side. So if you had an event at night, which is an important part, we haven't talked about that.
Yes.
But beyond the exhibits, there's a wonderful opportunity, not only in the community room, but down in this central space. And Dan has proposed arranging the exhibits so we have some openness there, and we can have functions. And those functions in the nicer weather can spill out onto the terraces. And on one terrace, we have an aircraft on a podium or on a stick, and on the other, a memorial fountain, not unlike what you've seen on the base, with memorial pavers and the opportunity for acknowledging that. And then upstairs, we're using the existing stair. We weren't sure at the beginning whether that would be the appropriate location, but after studying it, we think it's fine. And upstairs, the exhibits circle around the upper part of that existing space. Then we have some administration. The needs for the building are for some improvement to the windows.
Yes.
They've suffered, and our proposal is to replace them. And it's been a good long time. You know, they've served their purpose, and you know, even on your own house, after a certain period of time, you'd be replacing windows or doing something. It needs a new mechanical system, but it would for any sort of use. You know, that mechanical system is old, it's inefficient. We have new systems now, and we're going to locate it differently to get some efficiency, more efficiency out of the space. And then it will need a new lighting system for the exhibits, for lighting the exhibits, specialized system.
Tell us about the lights that I heard you mention earlier. There'll be lights on the outside of the building that are a little unique.
At night, and we did do a night rendering, the glass pavilion will glow, and you'll be able to see exhibits that Dan will talk about in a minute. There's a feature exhibit that will extend out into there. And then we have the windows on that side will also allow people to look in at night. And across the top of that, I call it a cornice, but you could call it a big fascia or something. You know, the building has that long top at the roof. We've had a lot of success lighting features like that on a building with these new LED lighting systems that are economical in both ways. You know, the initial price isn't high, and the usage is low, the cost of running them is low. And they have the ability to change color. So you could have it seasonally change, for instance, you know, have a blue thing. And that's a way, again, of distinguishing the building. As people drive by, they'll see the plane, they'll see this new addition, they'll see the memorial fountain, they'll see lighting at night, and they'll understand that this isn't what it was.
Exactly.
This is something new
and
something
exciting.
pretty exciting.
Well, you know, if for those of us that have been to one of our nearest communities in Raleigh, their Civic Center, they, for a very small price, so I've been told, they were able to change the lighting on the outside, like you said, for different occasions, and it changes the entire look of the building for whatever happens to be going on at the time. And that is so interesting to drive by, and it just catches your eye immediately because you're drawn to that light. So isn't it amazing what just lighting can do to change the whole ambiance and the look of an outside of a building? The attractiveness.
There's another part of that specialness and that signal that this is something new is that because the window pattern on the building is quite distinctive, it also lends itself very well to large-scale graphics that are sort of a mesh that you can see through and light can go through, but also carry an image. So imagine the building skinned in aviation-themed graphics as well.
Oh, interesting.
So this building takes on a very different characteristic that is, it's not a suit that fits poorly. As Lou says, this is a very distinctive building, and with its upswept roof and its glass, it's very, very conducive to this kind of a visitor attraction. It's going to serve very well, and it's going to be very efficient for use, but it's got the right image too. And so part of the plan is how to amplify that so that when this is reintroduced to the community, it will be a great delight that there'll be this new and different use for this building.
Well, walk us through, as we walk in the door, what might we see on the first floor?
Well, going back to Lou's point about how well suited this building is for a museum, we're proposing the entrance being in the parking lot side. We used to be a drive-up window.
Yes.
Lends itself very well to a center focus entrance that on either side will be flags and also some memorials. We want to recognize that this is a story of consequence and cost, as well as the exciting drama of it. So there'll be this entrance framed by kind of the timeless aspect of this. But as you come in, you'll be drawn forward by this glass wall facing Ash Street that Lou mentioned. On your left will be a very exciting museum store. On your right will be a welcome desk and staff. And as you go down between them, then the building opens up. The wings open up to your side. The central atrium, the two-story, opens up above you, and you've arrived at this special place. And what you see as you come in there, in the open plaza, there are the insignia of all the different wings that have called Seymour home, and the insignia of all the service branches of the United States military. This is a welcoming place for everyone. It's part of a bigger story. Overhead, you'll see what we call the Heritage Squadron. It is 7 of the premier fighter aircraft in the history of the world, all of which were flown first or very nearly first by the 4th. And looming overhead of that is the silhouette of the KC-135 tanker that the 916th flies to keep this mission in the air.
Oh, yes.
To the left, that would be the right. To the right and to the left are highly interactive exhibits. They're meant to encourage project activity. They're sort of in 4 different areas. One is just why do things fly? Understanding the basic science of flight through different activities and interactive exhibits that you can do to test out these things of lift and drag and thrust. And then in the front corner on the right would be what does it take to fly? What is it that pilots actually do? And we'll be looking at interactive exhibits of wind tunnels and other things, aircraft components, physical things that show wing sections, propellers, engine cutaways, and also we'll have kind of a mid-level cockpit-based simulator so people will be able to fly a mission.
Okay, so you can actually sit down in a simulated cockpit.
It'll be a screen-based thing that you'll be able to take. Say it's a F-15 Strike Eagle on a mission. That's something we hope to have there, so that people can have the experience of flight as they're exploring the science, technology, engineering, math of what pilots do. On the other side, there'll be a design studio about why do these aircraft look the way they do. And again, the Heritage Squadron overhead goes from the World War II era Spitfire up to the Strike Eagle. So you see, these are very different, all cool looking planes. They're the best planes ever. But why do they look the way they do?
Right, and why are they different from one another?
Why are they different? Why do you design a plane this way? And then finally, in the front left corner, or left facing onto Ash, will be what does it take to keep this mission, get this mission in the air and to keep it flying? And that's where we look at the team. It goes way beyond the cockpit there. It's the people on the ground, it's the weapons specialists, the communication specialists, the maintenance technology repair specialists. It's the whole system of people, all of whom need to work together as a team. So imagine a team activity for a classroom coming in there to actually put a mission together and put it in the air themselves. And so those are the kind of things on the first floor. On the second floor, of course, you'll see the Heritage Squadron continue to climb up, but we're going to look at the history of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, those who have called it home, and the connections with the community. And those will bring us right up to the present, because the fact, when you look at a history museum, this is history being made every day
right
in this place. And so keeping that mission current and the story of that mission current is partly what the exhibits will do, but also, I mentioned earlier, the community room classroom. Having that opportunity for a dialogue between members of the community and members of the Seymour community about what's going on and how that is a shared effort, because again, it couldn't happen without this community supporting the base, and it certainly couldn't happen without the men and women at the base in all job roles. So to bring them together. And then finally, there's a temporary exhibit gallery that allows for special occasions, anniversaries or significant dates, or if there's a collection that's available of aviation art or something, to come and create a special moment for people to visit. And all of this adds up to something that, because it talks about air power, what the people do, the science, technology, engineering, math of that in a highly interactive and yet highly personal way, that's what we also hope will be promoted to the tourists and see this as an opportunity to come here and see something that is so right for Goldsboro because of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and so important and exciting to learn about for them on their vacations and journeys to the coast.
Oh yes, what an interesting place it would be for youth and adults alike to come and learn all about aircraft in general, but this specific aircraft.
Well, and not only youth and adults alike, but youth and adults together. One of the things that this kind of museum does, and again, I talk about the community programming, but there's an intergenerational learning here, and you'll see this, particularly with veterans who have an incredible story of their life experience to tell. And this is a backdrop for them, certainly to be welcomed and to feel a part of it, but also to have a way to have a dialogue with their family, first of all, and other people.
When we talk to servicemen and women here, remember the woman we talked to who did the refueling? And she told us how she would love to be able to bring her son here. Now this is a woman who lives it every day in her job. But she said, if I could bring him to a museum like this to really understand
what his mom does on a daily basis.
What it takes. And remember that young, was he a lieutenant who gave us the tour out at the base of Plane on Sticks? We asked him, would you visit such a museum? He said, you know, I would when my dad's in town. I'd bring him here to this museum, you know. So Dan says it's
a good way to tell their story to their friends, their family.
Right.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
Right. And you know, a lot of people in the community said, well, of course we'd come to this museum one time. And what'll it take to get you back? And those are the components that we have built into this plan. The temporary gallery with the changing shows.
Yes.
You know, the event space downstairs for lectures and programs and performances. And so bringing people back is key to sustaining the museum.
Any museum, I would think so. What you told us earlier about the community having an input, tell me about the surveys that the community completed.
Well, some 513 people participated in the survey that was available over a 3-week period in the summer. So that was a fairly good response rate. And They were very candid about what they wanted in the museum. They were also candid about their concerns for the museum, and quite honestly, cost was one of them.
Leading into that, can you give us a brief overview of the budget?
A brief overview.
Yes.
And because cost was such a concern, we have crafted this construction budget as carefully as we can, using data from other museums we've designed in the Carolinas and talking with current builders in Goldsboro. So that construction budget comes in at about $2.5 million to upgrade the building to what we would call a moderate architectural grade.
Okay.
And that actually is under $200 a square foot, which we feel very good about that figure, don't we, Lou?
Yeah, that's a very reasonable cost for the renovation and the needs.
Okay, so that's for the renovation. Now moving forward, how about operating costs and so forth?
Operating costs, Bob Bray from Consulticon, who's had to leave for a plane this morning, also has run the numbers very, very carefully. He looks at the revenue we can expect that this museum will generate through ticket sales and events in the retail shop. And he also looks at the expenses that are required. Staffing is an expense that we have worked on very carefully with the committee here. We have proposed the equivalent of 7 full-time people. It'll actually be 5 full-time and a variety of part-time, all supplemented by a core of volunteers. And those staffing operating costs will run about $640,000 a year. And we expect that half of it can be raised by revenue, but half will have to be raised through donations and support.
Campaigns.
And Kim, I just want to make sure that we're giving you and the community the correct information about the budget. You
Yes.
heard
We
from
didn't finish
Tricia
the other
about
piece.
the
Okay.
$2.5 million
Right.
to renovate the building.
Yes.
But then the capital costs of developing, building, and installing the exhibits is an additional 3.5,
Right.
which
Okay.
again is based on a knowledge of what other museums have done in this regional level. We're not trying to overdo this, but we know we have very demanding visitor expectations to meet. So combined, the construction of 2.5 and the exhibit development and implementation of 3.5, we're putting this as a $6 million capital cost or money to get it open. And then in addition, what Tricia's talking about is what it'll take to operate it.
Okay. Okay. So $6 million is the entire project to get it up and running.
That's correct.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. That covers the renovation of the entire building and all the exhibits.
Right.
Okay. Wonderful. All right.
I imagine your viewers might like to know what we're proposing for a ticket admission.
Exactly. Exactly.
The benchmark adult admission is set at $7.50.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, we expect that people will spend anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hours in the museum. And that admission price then is discounted for retired citizens, military personnel, children. So we hope that will be
Yes. Well, can you
favorable.
hit very briefly on how we expect this to help our community economically? How we plan to pull in tourism, people coming from all over, not just here in our community,
Right.
but from other communities to come in and visit this museum and be a part of it.
All right. Well, I can speak to that a bit. In the market research, we have found that some 400,000 people live within 45-minute drive of the museum. And there are some 65,000 children between ages 5 and 17 who live within that 45-minute drive as well. With all the hands-on interactive exhibits that Dan and his group have planned with educational focus, we can certainly see this museum as being a destination for school group tours from as far away as Raleigh. That would be terrific. And we're projecting an annual attendance of about 29,000 people a year, and 40% of those will be tourists. And obviously, the museum is going to have to do a lot in publicity.
Oh,
and
yes. Oh, yes.
getting the word out and getting that brown sign out on I-70. And
It can be done.
it can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah.
Well, again, that's part of how we heard very strongly from the community the desire to serve the community
Yes.
with history and the education support and to strengthen the community, but also we heard that the many different initiatives to build tourism and to build overnight stays here
Yes.
was critically important. So the museum that we've conceived, as I mentioned earlier about the name, it's a nationally significant concept. So though some people may turn out to see the Goldsboro City Museum, this is actually a museum that could attract a lot of people.
Right.
There's a clarity and an immediacy about what it's about, and we want to make sure that people know that there's no better place that this story could be told than at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base.
You're exactly right. And we have behind us information that will be shared all around our community. If you're interested in seeing these billboards that give you information from the goals, the mission, objectives, renderings of what the building will look like, they can see this here at City Hall. You can come in our front doors and we'll have them there available for you to look at and be able to read and get more detailed information at your leisure. Well, thank you all for coming today and sharing what you've done over the past 6 months.
Well, thank you for having me.
You spent a lot of time
Thank
and
you, Kim, very
efforts
much.
here in our community, and we hope you've enjoyed your experience here.
We certainly have.
And we'll hope you'll come back.
We'd like to.
Thank you so much for being with us. This is information all about what's happening in your community. If you'd like to find out additional information, you can go to the City of Goldsboro's website. We have a link for the Air Force Museum where you can find out details of what we've discussed today and information that was covered for the City Council in the recent history. Thank you so much for joining us, and this is what's happening in your community.
Well, I have recomposed myself. Thank you very much. That was a
got
great
it
interview,
together.
by the way. I did. I lost control there, but you held it together. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Did you
All right.
learn a lot about the Air Force Museum? I hope you did.
Oh, I did. I love it. I love it. That was a good job with that.
And you know, we'll have those renderings up at City Hall if anybody would like to come and look at them closely and read all the details. We also have all that information on the website, which I told you that, which is goldsboronc.gov.
Okay, that's right.
Who's
On
on
tomorrow's
tomorrow's show?
program.
Well,
Tomorrow's
thinking the same
program,
thing.
we've got Paige Leonard with Crime Stoppers going to be with us tomorrow. We also have Donna Phillips, the director of the Wayne County Public Library, Goldsboro Wayne Library. We have Waco Hams will be the feature of our Why Wayne Works segment. And Chuck Waller of the Red Cross. I talked to Chuck a few days ago, and he's going to be we're going to be watching that
That's
discussion. All that's coming
That's
up
a
tomorrow.
full day.
It is.
All right. Well, stay with us. We'll see you again tomorrow, and this is what's happening in our community.
Every morning at 7 o'clock here on WGTV Today. Until tomorrow, I'm Wayne Alley.
And I'm Kim Best. We'll see you tomorrow.